Get started this morning in Gaza, where there are growing fears for the safety of Palestinians sheltering in Rafah after Israel pushed ahead with its military operation there. And this comes one day after Hamas accepted a proposed ceasefire hostage deal brokered by Egypt and Qatar, which Israel later said did not meet its requirements.
The Israeli military says their troops have seized control of the Gaza side of the Rafah crossing, which is one of the main entry points of aid into the besieged Palestinian enclave. This video, verified by NBC News, shows Israeli tanks flattening Gaza signs at the crossing. The Palestinian Crossings Authority says the movement of aid into the Strip has now stopped. An Israeli official told NBC News that the ground incursion into Rafah would be, quote, limited. Earlier, people in Gaza were seen celebrating after Hamas said it accepted a three-stage truce deal that would also see the release of Israeli hostages. But that joy soon turned to anguish after Israel rejected the deal, saying it fell short of its demands. Israel carried out more airstrikes on Rafah overnight, killing and wounding dozens of Palestinians. Despite that, Israel said it is sending a delegation to Cairo to continue negotiations. We have a team standing by to discuss all of this and more, but we start things off with NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel in Jerusalem.
So Israeli troops overnight took over the Palestinian side of the Rafah border crossing. So that gives Israel effective control of this key entry point into Gaza. It also gives them a foothold into the city. Israeli officials say that this is not the start of the widely anticipated big Rafah offensive, something that President Biden has opposed. They say that this is a tactical move, but it is also something that strengthens their hand as they go back into negotiations. So they are holding part of Rafah. They did leaflet the area. But our crew in Rafah started documenting the Israeli bombing campaign really just hours after the leaflets were dropped. So they didn't give very much time for people to evacuate the area. We talked yesterday how they were using text messages and leaflets to tell people to get out of this part of Rafah. But within hours, they were bombing, and according to medical officials, in overnight attacks, including that incursion into the Palestinian side of the Rafah border crossing, at least 20 people were killed, including children.
All right, Richard Engel, thank you so much for that. Let's now bring in NBC News White House correspondent Aaron Gilchrist for more on this. Aaron, good morning. Always good to see you. So we know the Biden administration has been working to try to prevent this ground offensive in Rafah from even happening for weeks now. Now, they're saying that this is this targeted incursion, but what are you hearing from the White House about this attack? Does the Biden administration intend to respond in any way?
So you're right, Savannah. The Biden administration has been saying for months now, really, that it didn't want to see Israel execute a large-scale, massive military movement into Rafah because of the more than 1 million Palestinians who are sort of gathered and who have been pushed into that area. And so a U.S. official has told NBC News that it doesn't believe this movement by Israel was that major military operation. As Richard indicated, it seemed as though this was and as the IDF has said this morning, this was a targeted operation that went in with a specific set of outcomes that they were trying to accomplish without being a massive military operation that would see air and ground forces and that sort of go in and do some extensive action there. The White House, we know, had been watching the situation and monitoring what was going on last night. And at this point, as I say, it doesn't seem as though there's an understanding that this was the major military operation that the U.S. has been encouraging Israel not to take. And of course, the primary concern there, Savannah and Christine, was that there are so many people, so many civilians in that area. And the U.S. has been saying to Israel that it should not go through with that operation until it can present a clear, executable plan to care for the evacuation of those people, to make sure that they could be that their needs could be met in terms of food and water and medicine before they would do any operation that would go to root out Hamas from that area. And of course, the administration does still support Israel's efforts to decapitate Hamas.
You know, Aaron, the Biden administration also delaying the sale of precision military weapons to Israel. What more do we know about that?
Yeah, our team at the Pentagon has been able to learn from two senior administration officials that the administration did stop or halt the shipment of a large shipment of offensive weapons into Israel last week. We know that this talk about ramping up to go in with this ground invasion of Rafah is something that the Israelis had been working on. And this shipment of 2,000-pound bombs and other ammunition would likely have been used in Rafah, according to this official that spoke to our team. And Israel has said that it would still plan to go in with some sort of a plan, a military action in Rafah, even though this sort of a shipment was delayed. Israel does have the ability, the weaponry to be able to execute something like that without the use of weapons provided by the U.S. But certainly anything that the U.S. would be providing would be helpful to Israel in its operations against Hamas. And of course, this raises the question of whether the Biden administration is trying to use some leverage here to slow down what Israel is doing until it can get a better idea of what Israel's plans are.
Aaron, you gave us a preview of this yesterday, but we know today the president is set to deliver a keynote address on anti-Semitism at a Holocaust remembrance ceremony today. What is his message going to be, and do we expect he will address this invasion of Rafah at all when we see him today?
Well, the White House has shared a few points that they expect the president to touch on in his comments this morning at the U.S. Capitol for the Days of Remembrance ceremony that's going to be happening there. And what we've learned at this point is that the president will talk about the Holocaust, and he will talk about the events that led to it and the need for Americans and people really around the world to not forget the murdering of 6 million Jews during the Holocaust and all that led up to that. He, of course, we know, will also speak about what happened on October 7th in Israel, the attack by Hamas then, and really talk about the connection between those two incidents in terms of how they've impacted the Jewish people and the need for people around the world to not forget those two occurrences in particular. And then, of course, he'll address things here domestically, Savannah and Christine. He'll talk about what we've been seeing on college campuses, the protests that we've been seeing, and he will denounce again anti-Semitism in those spaces and in any spaces around the country. He'll talk about how Americans should stand together to fight any sort of hate and hate speech in any form.
All right, Aaron Gilchrist, thank you very much for your reporting. All right, former NBC News correspondent and bureau chief in Tel Aviv, Martin Fletcher, joins us now for more on what happens next in Gaza. Martin, good morning. So nice to see you. Walk us through this here today. You know, Israeli tanks taking control of the border crossing. There are more than 1 million people in Rafah who are seeking shelter there, really with nowhere else to go in Gaza. An Israeli official telling NBC News this operation is quote, very limited. As all this begins, Martin, what's at stake for both Israel and Gaza here?
This is a huge moment, Christine and Savannah, in this ongoing drama and tragedy. It's a confusing, dangerous moment in which we're going to see soon, it appears, a large Israeli attack on Gaza, unless it can be prevented. The thing is that Israel found itself suddenly on its back foot with Hamas openly accepting and getting a lot of praise for accepting the ceasefire deal. Israel now finds itself on the back foot, needing somehow to create a situation in which its troops, on the one hand, can go in with the acceptance of the United States of America in particular, but on the other hand, try to reach a ceasefire deal with Hamas. The problem for Israel is that when Hamas came out now and accepted the deal and got a lot of encouragement and support for accepting the deal, Israel says it wasn't the deal that Israel proposed. So the key stumbling block at the moment seems to be that of the 33 hostages that Hamas says it will release, it now appears that some of those hostages, at least many maybe, but certainly some, will in fact not be alive. They will be corpses. They will be dead Israelis. Israel's hoping for 33 living hostages to be released. If that is not the case, then Israel says it cannot agree to this deal. They have sent negotiators to Cairo to continue negotiating with Hamas, but we're told it's a mid-level team, which means that they have not yet got complete agreement from the Prime Minister Netanyahu to reach a final deal. So this is still very much in the air whether there is going to be a ceasefire. Israel now, by sending its tanks to the crossing point at Rafah, is making a very clear indication that this is the next step towards a major attack on Rafah, which, of course, the United States doesn't want, Europe doesn't want, the United Nations doesn't want, many of the Israeli people don't want, and certainly the Palestinian peoples in Gaza, especially the civilians under threat now, also don't want. So this is a confusing, dangerous moment in this ongoing tragedy, and a lot is playing out very quickly today. Today seems to be a critical day.
And Martin, as you just explained, obviously these ceasefire negotiations so tenuous, walking this fine line. Do you think that the fact that Israeli troops have now entered Rafah puts those talks in jeopardy at all? Do you see that changing the conversation in Cairo?
Well, as Aaron mentioned earlier, it's about leverage, I think. I think it's about leverage. Israel saying, if there is no agreement very quickly, we're set to attack in a major way Rafah, which is their final target. They wanted to destroy, they say, the 4 Hamas brigades, army brigades, still in Rafah. That's where Israel believes the Hamas leader Anwar Sinwar is. They believe many hostages are there. So Israel says, from its part, it needs to attack Rafah, but it's being held back by the United States in particular. So the issue is whether or not Israel will attack. And I think that, and of course, whether Palestinian civilians will be killed in large numbers in that attack. And so that's what we have to wait and see what will be decided probably today. But certainly the presence of the Israeli tanks at that key junction between Egypt and Rafah, which also between Egypt and Gaza, which we also believe will mean that no more humanitarian aid, for instance, will be able to get through today. So the pressure points are increasing today, and we're just going to have to see whether or not Israel and Hamas will come to some kind of agreement. Otherwise, it appears Israel is poised for its major attack.
Certainly a critical day here. We know you'll be watching it unfold. Martin Fletcher, thank you so much.
Thank you, Martin. Well, back here in the U.S., protests and clashes with police continue on college campuses just as commencement season gets underway. Now, several schools are canceling their graduations or making alternative arrangements. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa explains.
The tidal wave of protests on America's college campuses now colliding with commencement season. Columbia University canceling its main graduation, opting instead for individual school ceremonies.
It's been a tough time, honestly. It's been really, I think it's been demoralizing.
Free Palestine! Emory University announcing it will move its main commencement off campus, citing safety concerns.
Why are you doing that?
Last month, police clashed with demonstrators there. Meanwhile, commencement season marked by disruptions. A pro-Palestinian protester covered in fake blood stormed Northeastern University's stage this weekend.
Davis, we will attack!
While demonstrators marched through the University of Michigan's ceremony. At UCLA, dozens of arrests. Demonstrators calling on the school to divest from Israel, marching and holding sit-ins. The administration saying classes would move fully remote the same day campus was supposed to be back to business as usual after police cleared an encampment there last week. Officers called in to clear tents at UC San Diego. Police arresting 64 protesters. NBC News now tracking protests at more than 75 campuses nationwide, arrests close to 2,500. Protesters at the University of Chicago erecting a fence around their camp after negotiations with the administration collapsed. Faculty calling on the school to avoid bringing in police.
Our most immediate concern is for the well-being of our students. We don't want them getting beat up just because they're camping on the lawn.
The school saying students' demands were inconsistent with the university's principles.
We're not going away. We're not giving up the fight.
Our thanks to Maggie Vespa for that report. Well, the deadline for the encampment at the University of Chicago to be broken down has passed. Students there say they are bracing for police intervention. The school's administration has not commented on what next steps they may take. Well, former President Donald Trump will be back in court later this morning in his ongoing hush money criminal trial here in New York City.
Yesterday, the jury heard from a former Trump Organization executive who discussed his role in the alleged hush money payments Mr. Trump made to Stormy Daniels. Earlier in the day, the presiding judge threatened the former president with jail time after ruling he again violated the gag order, which bars him from negatively discussing jurors and potential witnesses. After court adjourned for the day, Trump addressed that confrontation with the judge and the gag order.
The other thing that maybe is even more disgraceful is the gag order, where I can't basically, I have to watch every word I tell you people. I can't talk about it because this judge has given me a gag order and say you'll go to jail if you violate it. And frankly, you know what? Our Constitution is much more important than jail. It's not even close. I'll do that sacrifice any day.
NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos is, of course, here with the latest. Danny, good morning. Always good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you, too. I'm watching that video, and I'm thinking only of Todd Blanche. He's just thinking billable hour. He's just trying to get through this at this point.
Well, tell us, that's exactly where I want to start, of course, is on this gag order. And tell us really kind of the options that the judge has, what this does look like if he were to impose jail time.
So administratively, it would be a nightmare. I'm sure the judge himself, no judge with any Trump trial has any idea how they would administratively jail a former president. And Trump, on some level, is aware of that, or else he wouldn't be so brave when he's out there speaking. So, yes, he would have to figure out a way to hold him. I picture it being just for a few hours. Now, a lot of people have said, hey, what if they just hold him till like 11 o'clock at night? Yeah, that might work in private industry. This is a courthouse. Everybody's out of there by 5 p.m. So just like holding a detainee for several hours, those buses leave to go back to the actual jails at night. So I don't know how they would do that, but logistically it would be a nightmare. The judge himself said that. I really admired how he admitted, I don't want to do this. It's going to be a huge pain. But he will if he has to. I suspect Trump will hew closer to the line going forward so that the next hearing, and there probably will be one, will at least be a close call.
And he wouldn't spend jail time like a regular person would spend jail time because he's got Secret Service protection. So it would be some kind of detention or jail time, timeout, I guess, but with full Secret Service protection. Let's talk about what we heard in that courtroom yesterday from the former controller of the company talking about this payment, this $130,000 payment to Michael Cohen. What did we learn? It was unclear, really, I think, what that payment was for. What did we learn about that money?
Well, the fact that it was unclear is a major part of the government's case here, is the idea that this doesn't exactly make sense. To look at it in its simplest terms, as an attorney, if I invoice someone, I don't like paying taxes, but I never say to my clients, hey, take my bill and double it because I don't want to pay taxes on it. I mean, when you step back, the oddness of this payment arrangement emerges very quickly. And there's so many other issues with this. The idea of, is it a reimbursement or is it payment for legal services? The other thing they developed yesterday is the idea, and they really need to do this, the government does, that Donald Trump was a micromanager. They need to establish that because otherwise one of his main defenses is going to be, I'm the big boss man. I don't oversee everything like who picks up the garbage or who gives us paper clips. That's not my job. Yes, I sign checks. And, they went a long way showing signed checks by Donald Trump. But anyone remotely involved with business knows that the boss man sometimes signs checks. He may not know exactly what they're for. So they're inching along. They made a lot of progress yesterday.
So, Danny, it looks like they could still need 2 more weeks, a little bit more than that, before handing it over to the defense. We haven't heard from some big names here still. Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels herself. What do you think these next 2 weeks look like?
So I like to take the outlier bets here. And I don't even know that you need a Stormy Daniels at this point. I still think they'll call her. But Stormy Daniels represents risk for the prosecution. And if they can get all that evidence in through, for example, Keith Davidson, her former attorney, then the prosecution would just as rather not have to call her at all. Michael Cohen's another example. If they didn't have to call Michael Cohen, they wouldn't. But they almost certainly will, because I think that's going to be the ultimate direct evidence. Donald Trump told me to do A, B, C, or D. You may not hear him give the direct order to do what is alleged here, but Michael Cohen will probably testify as to something pretty close to that.
Fascinating to watch. It really is. Every day has been fascinating. Danny, thank you.
Love having you here to break it down. Thank you.
All right, at least one person is dead after extreme weather tore through the central part of the country overnight. The line of storms marks 6 straight weeks of severe weather across the country. The storms creating wind damage, heavy downpours, destructive tornadoes. The worst of this system hitting Oklahoma overnight, with damage reported across multiple counties. The small town of Barnstable, Oklahoma, was hit by a tornado for the 2nd time in a month. That's where NBC News correspondent Sam Brock is this morning.
Christine, good morning. We arrived on the ground here in Barnstable overnight, and it's absolutely brutal here. This bedroom community of Tulsa has been decimated by a violent, incredibly dangerous tornado. That's how it was described on air in real time as we were watching the reports. Now on the ground, as you look over my shoulder, homes like this are completely destroyed. I mean, cinder blocks that are piled up, doors that have been snarled, and it's not like this is just one little snapshot. According to the Oklahoma Highway Patrol, there's 30 to 40 damaged homes that look something something like this all throughout this community. And we're not talking about a large community either. This is one of these places where it's only 1,000 people. It's called the little town with a big heart that has been turned completely upside down right now. And you can't see it from where I'm standing, but just down the street, there's all of these police cars and vehicles and debris that's being moved around already in this early morning hour. Equipment, as whether that's cleanup or whether it's still a search just to make sure that everyone is okay, not entirely clear. But again, we did watch folks going through all of these piles and calling out, is there anyone there? As far as what we know this morning, one confirmed fatality so far. There are multiple injuries, according to the sheriff of Barndall. He did not expound as to the severity of them or how many people are injured, but it's incredible to think only one confirmed fatality so far, because this was a direct hit of this tornado, or reported tornado, right through this area. And we knew coming in, Christine, that it was a high-risk situation, which is extremely rare. It happens maybe once a year in the state of Oklahoma. The last 6 times that's happened, there have been on average 19 tornadoes. So far, 7 overnight. But this is, again, just one situation that folks are dealing with. And there's also a nursing home I'd like to point out that was basically split down the middle. That's in a part of town we can't access right now. Concerns initially that there might have been folks there that were trapped, that could have been injured, perhaps even killed. Good news on that front. The nursing home posting overnight that everyone is safe and accounted for. There was a gas leak they couldn't turn off, so all the residents there had to be moved to other facilities. They're telling their loved ones we're going to reunite them and make sure they're in facilities that they're getting safe care at some point. But all of this sort of in the air right now as communities all throughout Oklahoma are dealing with some level of damage, but this is the worst one right now. Of 15 or so reported tornadoes on the ground this morning in Barndall, we are seeing up close and personal folks' lives who have been changed forever. That's the latest here, Christine. I'm going to send it back to you.
All right, Sam Brock, thank you very much. Well, let's now bring in NBC News meteorologist Michelle Grossman for the latest on the continuing threat posed by these storms. Hey, Michelle, good morning.
Hey there, Savannah. Great to see you. And yeah, it's been a tough go with this severe storm season. And we're going to see severe storms continuing today, also Wednesday into Thursday. And this is why we have that cold front. Clear to see where that front is moving to the east. We have storms along this front. We watched them all night long, starting to dissipate somewhat, but they're going to flare up once again, but still really active as we start out our Tuesday. You can see lots of lightning here, even seeing a little purple. That could indicate some hail in some spots. So we have severe storms all along this front and really heavy rain as well. Now, as we go throughout the rest of today, 29 million people at risk as this moves off to the east. So now we're talking parts of the Midwest continuing into the Ohio Valley. We have an enhanced risk. That's 3 out of 5 on the scale here. That includes Cincinnati, Lexington, yellow too, where you see that shading. Could see some strong storms. So we are looking at damaging hail once again, large hail. The risk for tornadoes, some will be on the strong side and winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. So really gusty, not the 80-mile-per-hour winds we saw yesterday, but still damaging and still could cause some more power outages because we have power outages right now. Then as we go throughout tomorrow, 44 million people at risk, sort of the same scenario. Large hail, some strong tornadoes are possible, winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour, but this number grows and the real estate grows. So now we're talking anywhere from portions of Texas all the way into the Ohio Valley, Paducah, Memphis, Little Rock, Fort Smith could see some strong storms on your Wednesday. In addition to that, we're worried about flash flooding because we're going to see training storms, and we could see 1 to 2 inches per hour, numerous rounds of heavy rain, especially where you see this darker blue, Lexington, Knoxville, Paducah, Memphis, Little Rock. You could see some flash flooding on your Wednesday as well. Then there is Thursday, still talking about the threat for severe storms. 49 million people impacted. Again, winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. We're looking at Texas all the way to the mid-Atlantic. Raleigh, Charleston, Alexandria, and Austin could see some strong storms. And then Savannah, we're looking at some heavy rain as well. A rainfall up to 1.5 to 2 inches in some spots. Where you see this darker color here, that's where we're looking at the highest amounts of rain. So that will be the story as we go throughout our Wednesday, Thursday, and then the rest of today as well. Back to you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.